Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. All right, I want to have one college opinion. So I watched, some Alabama, Georgia. And so Carson Beck coming into the year felt like the no doubt about it, number one pick. He had 3 picks. Brock Bowers is so talented. I mean, people have asked Kirby Smirt. I've had a couple conversations with people about Brock Bowers when he was going to get drafted, and people would call Kirby Smirt, and they would ask him, what do you think of your tight end, Brock Bowers? And he's like, listen, man, we're Georgia. We have good players. There's nothing on the planet like that. When you watch Georgia's quarterback without Brock Bowers, and Ladd McConkey, okay, who a great player. But when you watch him without that safety valve, Brock Bowers, there's no way I could draft Carson Beck number 1. Absolutely no way. Now, I think Quinn Ewers is really interesting. Shedeur Sanders is a talent. Do you want to deal with the other stuff? I'm not sure. I think Cam Ward's insane. But I watched that Georgia-Bama game, and I'm thinking, I'm sorry, we didn't think it was a good quarterback class. I think Cam Ward and Quinn Ewers, you cannot watch. I thought Carson Beck just does not look like a number 1 guy on the board. You take away that tight end weapon and that slot weapon, they still have the best talent in the country. That was my take on that game. Is I thought I picked Alabama to win. I thought Bama would win. It got very close at the end. There was a million plays in the second half. I mean, you could talk about that game for 4 days. But that was my take, is that Cam Ward is becoming, with Quinn Ewers, they're becoming the top 2 picks.
I hadn't really Georgia's last couple of years, they don't play in any meaningful games till the end of the season. But these last 2 weeks against Kentucky and Alabama, this guy looked completely overwhelmed. I mean, they easily could have lost to Kentucky, who actually might be pretty good, beat Ole Miss. And then last night, to me, those 50-50 balls in the second half, like that's not NFL football.
Yeah.
In the first half, when it was on and he had to drive the ball and fit it into windows, he looked completely overwhelmed. Now, it's not saying he's not talented. He's not an NFL player. But to me, he's like a second or third round pick. I couldn't take that guy in the first round. Are you insane? Have we seen? And like you said, all these guys had him on the top of the board. And these last couple of weeks, you're watching them, and there's a lot of pressure. And you go, it's not. I don't care how many yards you throw for when you're down 33-15. I'm sorry, the defense isn't quite playing like they were when it was 7-0 or 14-0 in the first quarter, and it's all on the line. The lights are the brightest.
And the other thing, John, when you watch Quinn Ewers' arm strength, there's YouTube videos of him in high school. It looks like a pro when he's like 17. The ball flies out of Quinn Ewers' hands. He was just sort of lifestyle, diet. He was just undisciplined. He had like a Jay Cutler feel. You're like, does he love football? He's kind of a mess. Well, Sark's got him buttoned up. That ball flies out of his hand. Cam Ward's electric with a good arm. And Shedeur is, I mean, the kid is weirdly accurate throwing off.
These last 2 weeks for Shedeur, like if you want to make the argument for him to go number 1, to come off that win, a little bit of a miracle win, what happened the next week? You can either like, could they lay an egg here? They came and blitzed those guys, and he was making throws. His talent compared to Carson Beck's talent is not even in the same close conversation. Like the Carson Beck texting with scouts last night, I was like, where is this guy a first rounder? Like, where's he going? It was like, there was a lot of, everyone's watching this thing. The entire league, the scouts. I can't even imagine how many scouts were in attendance. A lot of people, the box score at the end of the game, I'll promise you a lot of scouts leave to go home in the third quarter, watch the fourth quarter on TV. Like that first half is something you'll never forget if you were in attendance or you were a GM watching at your hotel room. You can't unforget that. You really can't. And how good is Kalen DeBoer?
Well, I was talking to a friend that's a booster at the University of Washington, and I think Jed Fish is a good coach. But if you go to last year's team that played for the national championship, all their talent was on offense. It was all on offense. They just didn't have a lot of, they had a decent defensive tackle that I think the Rams got undrafted free agent. They had one good corner. Huskies always have pretty good corners. But it was just like, Kalen got a team. Kalen didn't win 9 games there. He beat Oregon 3 straight times in 2 years. Oregon had better players, and we think Dan Lanning
he was a 9-point underdog in the Pac-12 championship last year against Oregon, and a 5-point underdog against Sark.
And it just Kalen DeBoer. There is this is a reference that people will forget Don James, but I grew up with Don James as a Husky coach, and Saban credits Don James for his early coaching acumen. And Washington never lost a game they should have. They always won the games, and they often pulled upsets. I don't think there is, before the game starts, he may create the best game plans. Like some coaches are good adjustment coaches. Some coaches are great recruiters. A lot of these college guys can recruit. They're not great play creators, play callers. Lane Kiffin is, but he can also recruit. Lane's a pretty good coach. But Kalen DeBoer's ability to get 3-star athletes, turn them into 4- and 5-star players so he can recruit, he can develop. His game plans are insane. I mean, they just, every time they played Oregon, first 3 series, Oregon's in a hole. I mean, Georgia had won, 42 straight regular season games. It was over. He may create the best game plans. And some guys are just great in the film room. They're film room wizards. But, I mean, I bet Alabama winning the first half, I mean, for the next 8 years, because that's what he did at Washington. And by the way, Washington didn't have anything close to Bama's talent.
You know what he is? He's an extension, because this guy, was just kind of over it and had opportunities to go different places after Washington and didn't. But he's Chris Peterson. If Chris Peterson had chose to go to the SEC, he's intense in the sense of like high standards. People aren't screwing around, and there's an intellectual capacity there that is higher than basically everyone he's going up against. Like, I'm sorry, Kirby, high level guy, his resume speaks for itself, but just in terms of schematics, like I'm taking DeBoer. I mean, I just am. And it's an offensive sport. Even Nick has admitted to that. So Kirby's just at a disadvantage. You just take the offensive coaches, right? I mean, look at Sark. Look at Ryan Day. It's an offensive sport, especially in college. But Kalen DeBoer, I think, is the total package of he clearly knows what he's doing. Like, it's undebatable now. But his offensive prowess, which I was like, what's he going to look like without his guy Ryan Grubb that goes to Seattle? Oh, exactly the same. I mean, to be up 28-0 like that at home against it's borderline impossible to follow a Vince Lombardi or a Nick Saban or a John Wooden. I don't think it could go any smoother after last night for that guy. Nick's already given him his blessing. You eventually have to do it. But to work Kirby like that, you can't convince me that was a close game. It was 33-15 with 10 minutes to go in the game. They hit a couple big plays. Now, it ultimately, Bama had to hit a big play, which they did. But that was domination, Colin. That was to come out like that at home. I mean, is he getting a contract extension at the end of the year? I know he just got hired, but I mean, how do you go from Nick Saban to that? How lucky are they?
Well, and he's also smart because he inherited momentum. And I think what he did, he inherited momentum. I mean, he's turned Jalen Milroe. Like, I never thought Jalen Milroe was a pro. And I watch him and I'm like, Jesus, efficient, throws a pretty deep ball. I mean, there's just something in his coaching. Michael Penix, you could see very quickly, threw a beautiful ball. Left-hander, a lot of scouts don't like. But it was pretty clear earlier, like Penix throws, he's like a bigger Tua. The ball's too pretty. He's going to get drafted. When I watched Jalen Milroe, I was like, kind of athletic. His game
had him looking like Josh Allen in the first quarter last night. Would you rather have Jalen Milroe in the third round or Carson Beck in the first? I know which one I'd choose.
Yeah. So I was having this conversation with somebody today, and I said, I just, once again, coaching, it could be the Vikings on both sides. It can be what's happening in Washington. I mean, Jesus, give Sean Payton credit on it's a short week when you play on the road, go home, although I think they stayed out east. But it's hard. I mean, sometimes you're at a disadvantage. You have Aaron Rodgers, I have Bo Nix. You're at home, I'm on the road. That's a disadvantage. You pull a win out like that, coaching's just bigger.
I know we got to get out of here, but I think it takes – I don't think many people could walk into the shoes of Saban. He's still around. I mean, he lives in the town. Obviously, he does the game day stuff, but it feels like he's always around Alabama. That cannot be. He recruited half the team. He just coached Jalen Milroe last year to the playoffs, had Michigan on the ropes. That guy's still going to games. He's been to several games this year. That's not easy. I mean, this guy, I mean, he's borderline Jesus in the state of Alabama, and that's who you're taking over for. And to have it go like this, because I think they got a guy who is secure enough in himself, because he's nothing like Nick. He's not a screamer and a yeller. He's much more, like I said, with Chris Peterson, much more cerebral, much more mellow, but he's so good schematically. At the end of the day, the highest level players in college, you can either resonate with them. Now, Nick's a great scheme guy too, but Nick was so intense, they were kind of scared. This guy just knows everything that's going on football wise. How do they not listen? They clearly are. And it's working. I mean, it's not out of the realm possibility that they're in the national championship game, is it? After what we just witnessed last night?
No, I think I if I had to guess today, I would say Texas, Ohio State, and Bama look different. And I think what happened to Georgia, I didn't think it would look like that. But I
don't look at them the same with their quarterback.
Yeah,
you could tell me they could lose in the Elite Eight or whatever, however the brackets are now.
Yeah. John Middlekauff, former NFL scout, 3 and Out's his podcast. Good stuff.
Take it easy, Colin.